make changes in our lives. We thank you so much for all our members here. We ask your blessings upon us as a congregation. We pray all this in the name of our Lord Jesus. Amen. Okay, if you're visiting with us, first, welcome. I don't think I welcomed our visitors. If you're visiting with us, we're really glad you're here. We've been studying mistakes or failures in the Bible. There's a lot of them in there, and we're trying to learn from those failures, those mistakes, because if it happened to them, it could happen to me. It could happen to you, right? I mean, think about it. If Abraham, the father of the faithful, if he made mistakes, surely I'm going to be vulnerable to making mistakes. So we want to learn from all these mistakes that God's preserved for us. You know, the Bible's not just one of the ways you know it's not just a made-up account. It's not just a bunch of people got together to dupe people, because all these really well-known characters, just everyone you get into that's got much of their life at all recorded in the scriptures. It doesn't just tell you about the positive things they did. It tells you of their mistakes. And if Ramona, you and I were making this book up, we would leave that part out about us, wouldn't we? Yeah, we wouldn't do that. So God's given us this so we can learn from successes, we can learn from failures. And so we're looking at those. We've looked at several. And where we left off last week, we were with the children of Israel, okay? And they had been led out of Canaan. They'd been led out of Egypt. Y'all let me say stuff wrong up here and then just not catch myself right. I call myself that. Throw the flag. Throw a yellow flag or something. Yellow card. So they had been brought out of Egypt in this amazing, we could even call it spectacular, awesome way. Okay? They get out, and we read a little bit about this. We're going to pick up here in just a minute in Exodus chapter 14. But they get out, and God has them kind of make a turn and look like they're kind of wandering. It's what it appears to be. And he has them camp right by the sea. Okay? So strategically, not really a good place to be. But that's where God has them camp at. Okay? Well, Pharaoh sees this kind of, to him, the people are wandering. All these slaves that had been serving Egypt, he'd been using productively for his purposes. He's like, they're out there kind of lost and confused. We're going to go after them with the army, and we're going to get them, okay? So that's kind of the background to catch everybody up. So we read about kind of this whole setup, and now we want to pick up and see how God kind of facilitates the deliverance of the people there, because there's a it's kind of interesting after all God's already done to get them out of Egypt. As soon as they get in a tough spot, they have the wrong attitude. Okay, so if you will, in Exodus 14, you can kind of read along with me. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Is it because there's no graves in Egypt that you've taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." Moses said to the people, "Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you only have to be silent." So that's kind of where we got to last week. So here we are. Let's look how God facilitates that, this deliverance again of these people. Verse 15, said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." Now listen how God facilitates this. Then the angel of God who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. So everybody's terrified. Pharaoh comes boiling down, racing down with his army. Everybody's terrified. Everybody's crying out. God tells Moses, use your staff, hold it up there, part the sea, and this cloud that we've talked about, this cloud of God, it moves from leading to what? It gets between the Egyptians and the Israelites, okay? And it's too dark for these Egyptians to go any farther. They're like, whoa, you know. They know they're there. They can't see. So that's what's setting all this up. The sea is getting parted, and you can kind of read a little bit between the lines. So they're going to move across the sea. This cloud's going to do what? It's going to keep the Egyptians back until the appropriate time when God's going to get his glory over Pharaoh and his army. So let's keep reading. Verse 21. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them in the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. Listen to this. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. So it gets scary. What's the response of these people? Moses, what have you done? We told you we didn't want to do this. We told you just leave us in Egypt. We just wanted to be servants. We just want to be slaves. That's what they're saying. And what's God tell Moses to do? Quit whining to me. Get busy. Raise your staff up. Tell the people to be quiet. I'm going to show them. And he does this amazing thing for them. So I want us to get through this. There's some things for us to talk about. But But I want you to grasp, first of all, that at this point, the scriptures tell us clearly, these people what? They believed in the Lord, okay? You know, I believe when they came out of Egypt, after that night, when all the firstborn are dead, guess what? They believe in the Lord. Do they know the Lord God Jehovah exists? Yes. Do they know he's doing these things for them? Yes. I bring that up because we're going to see with them over and over. It's the same thing. As soon as life gets tough, they just despair. They just despair. Okay? All right.
Something interesting I was thinking about when we talk about this is that just one chapter before, like they're going to bring him out, he kind of gives Moses 2 chapters. Chapter 13, verse 17. It says, "Then it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near."
Yeah.
That was the quick route.
Right.
For God said, "Lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt." This shouldn't surprise God.
No, and that's the thing about even this event we're talking about right here. So let me ask you, was this event, was it all about the Israelites? Building faith in them? Or was it also about the Egyptians? It was about what? Both of them. See, sometimes part of our problem is we only see events from our perspective. You know, we don't realize what God's trying to work out providentially, even in our lives, what he really wants to do. We don't see that. We sometimes just get tangled up in what? Wow, life is not going right now the way I want it to go. This is tough. This is hard. What is going on? I go to church. I do these things. I read my Bible. I pray. And now life is hard. Well, a lot of events, God's trying to use us. There's multiple things going on, you know. And sometimes we just see everything just from this one perspective. And we need to think, what? I don't understand. But I know God wants to use this somehow for what? Whatever hardship I'm going through, he wants to use it for his glory. So we can just be nearsighted, be self-focused on our issues, and maybe what he intends never comes to pass because we don't have enough faith to be the light, the person he's wanting us to be in a situation. And so just remember that. Sometimes we don't appreciate how God's working through things. And in this case, he's truly building faith in these Israelites. I mean, if you think about it, just this whole event, it impacts not just the Israelites, not even just the Egyptians. I'm telling you, this is something that everybody in that whole area, everybody knows this happened. You're going to hear them talking about it when 40 years later, Rahab, these spies come to Rahab and she's going to say, what? I know what your God did to those Egyptians. I know all the things he's been doing. Okay? So, God's working in many, many ways here. Okay? So let's ask ourselves just a few things maybe to think about. It took years, what now?
It probably took years for Pharaoh to overcome what happened to all of them. I mean, he had no army.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's hard for me to tell whether he was even in there or not, you know. But one way or the other, yeah, it was a devastating thing. I mean, if you think about, at least from kind of how history is recorded, from what we know, the strongest, most powerful nation on earth at this time, I think we could safely say, reasonably say, was the Egyptians. So God's really wanting to make this point, you know. Jerry, go ahead. it wasn't just people. He lost all these chariots. He lost all these things. Yeah. And the way he lost them, think about it. Any confusion about how this happened? I mean, the point Chris is making is they're not even ready to fight the Philistines, much less Egypt yet. I mean, they're not even ready for that. So he's doing it.
That, the way that you mentioned that God put himself between the army. I've read that 100 times, right? And you don't think about it. Essentially, he's protecting the sick, right? And allowing them to make the evacuation. And if you apply that to our lives, he always gives us a way to get out of situations we shouldn't be in, right? Yeah. And that's the same effect there that he was giving them. He was allowing them to make the right choice to get out of the way.
Yeah, in fact, that's kind of, let's think about what Jerry said there.
Egypt has never been a real world power to this day. At that time, they were the power in the world. If you look at ancient history,
Yeah.
and they've never been that again.
Yeah, they had their run during that time period, but for sure, it's never been. It was a waning, of their power, for sure. Yet Jerry makes an interesting point. Let's ponder this. Sometimes I know we're kind of being hypothetical. It goes beyond what's actually been. But let's think about this. Let's just say Moses. There's no Egyptian army. They're just there. And God says, I want to go across the sea. Lift your staff and part these waters. How many of us are loading up and heading across that? I mean, that's sometimes adversity in our life is God's helping us what? He's helping to move us. He's helping to get us. He's helping to get us going, and that's hard for us to appreciate and comprehend. I mean, these Egyptians, they were going despite. I mean, it's almost like how much you got to do to discourage somebody. How big a deal? I mean, you can tell Pharaoh absolutely. He could not get his power, Mr. Elwood, the power that he had, that these Hebrew slaves had gotten away from him. I mean, it's just eating him up to the point that, could you imagine being there that day, that night, and you're like, George, it's like, really? What do you got to do to realize this might be bigger than I wanted? This might be a little bigger than I want to bite off. Maybe the cloud, the lightning, maybe I just ought to stay here and watch this. No, Pharaoh's going. But the Israelites, I mean, if you just look at how they are, I don't know if they'd have got across that Red Sea just without this kind of thing. So the point being is they wouldn't have had to, but God was what? He put some fear in their hearts. It wasn't like, oh, we need to take a shortcut. It's like, no, this is the only way out. Sometimes life's like that for us. We just have to go through some of these things that are pretty scary. I'm telling you, this event is beyond a natural explanation. I mean, you say, well, no, Tom, he used wind. I'm just telling you. Wind that can part water like that, you're not walking through that. That's wind. I don't know how many of you have been in some really tough winds. We had some hurricanes here. I mean, it's a tough thing. And so you got children and stuff. I mean, this is an amazing phenomena here. There's no explanation for this other than God is working this out miraculously. Pharaoh doesn't pick up on it. And I mean, he goes right into it. God draws him right in there. And then it's like, okay, Moses. Isn't it kind of interesting? Why did God need Moses? Brother Glenn, how much power was in that staff?
0.
There was no power in that staff. The power was in God. But this is another thing. God was doing what for Moses? He was developing Moses also, okay? Brother Glenn.
I was just noticing here, I hadn't noticed this before, but
So let's talk about it. Even after all these things, these people still have this every little thing. They're going to say they're growing and declining. So we'll learn from that. Okay? We'll learn from that. You know, the thing that you mentioned, Glenn, it reminds me of Jesus with the apostles. Over and over again, he says, "Oh, you little faith, how long, how long?" It's like the feeding of the 5,000, right? You feed them. They come in, you know, send the people away, they're all hungry. And he says, "What? You feed them." And they're all, could they have fed them? They could have, but they didn't. They weren't ready. Couldn't do it, so.
Well, they just didn't understand their mission. You know what I mean? Like they just didn't. This reminds me of a time when we were all hunting together, and I was across the line from you, and I thought you were screaming, "Stop shooting! Stop shooting!" and Liam, y'all, we shot a bunch of ducks, and they were just flying all over us, and there was so many that were floating out of the line, and Liam was stopping and picking up the ducks. It's like, that's not our job. Keep shooting. That's what you were hollering. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Right.
And they just didn't understand.
Yeah, Liam was so happy because he had just learned a duck hunt that year. He had knocked his first ducks down. And there's these ducks still piling in on us. I'm like, Liam, we're going to go pick them up. I'm like, Liam, shoot, keep shooting, you know? And he's like, and he shot 2 more ducks right then, you know? It was, they didn't understand the mission, and maybe even I think they knew their mission, I'm not sure they bought into their mission yet. Was the promised land truly, in their eyes, a big deal? I mean, we could say, well, of course it is. Promise all. But in terms of, you mean I got to go do something? I mean, I got to be uncomfortable? I mean, I got to, as Brother Clem's talking about, I got to get hungry. I got to get thirsty. I got to go out in the wilderness. We just want to sit back there where the meat pots were full and everything, life was so wonderful back there being slaves. That's their perspective in this whole journey. So they definitely never bought into what God's purpose was for them. Okay, so we're going to keep seeing that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can apply that to our lives.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of work to be done for the Lord in heaven. And it's one of those things where, you know, do you glide or do you work?
Right. Let's go to the next event. So just remember, they have just gone through this. Okay, they have just had this amazing, awesome experience. Okay. So now let's go to chapter 15. Okay. And this, really, you're going to see, this is 3 days later. Okay. So keep that in mind when this happens. Chapter 15, verse 22. Kind of my next mistake. So Exodus 15, verse 22. Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log, a piece of wood, and he threw it in the water, and the water became sweet. There the Lord made for them a statute and a rule, and there he tested them, saying, "If you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all the statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I'm the Lord, your healer." Okay? I mean, we are literally 3 days later, and what's happening? They've gone 3 days without water. Now, I'm just telling you, it seems amazing to us. How many of y'all gone 3 days without water? mean, that's why I want you to realize we can look at these people in total, like, I can't believe they were like this. Look. Most of us, you go about a day without water, and somebody's starting to talk about, we got to get some water. I mean, so this is kind of the realities of how life goes. We're all good, the classic Monday morning quarterback with these people. But the reality is, even after seeing all this, I do not understand this, but they're grumbling and complaining against Moses. Okay? As if what? All is lost. I knew it. Here we are again. Why did we come in? It's just the same old thing. You're just going to hear from them. So, God intervenes again. Brother Glenn, you had a comment? Yeah.
Kind of a little side thing here, that when they came to this place, which they later named Mar in Hebrew, Marah, which is the Hebrew word for bitter. Bitter. I just thought, remember Ruth when Naomi was in such a horrible situation.
Yeah.
She said, okay, guys, I'm going to change my name. I'm going to change my name. And so bitter.
Yeah.
Second thing that's interesting is 3 days. Why 3? I always wonder about when I see 3. It's a very interesting thing to make a point. You mentioned the number of days, is
Yeah.
3. And we see that 3 as an important symbolic number that repeats in the Bible. Jesus said 3 days I will be in the heart of the earth. We can go on and on and on
Yeah.
for an hour talking
Yeah.
about 3s.
Yeah.
So, and here physiologically, like you said, humans, you can go without food for long.
Yeah.
But why not? Really, survival trainers will say about 3 days.
Trees right there on the edge.
All you
What
can
you
do is
gonna do?
that walk.
Yeah.
So it is interesting, 3 days, right at the very limit of your physiology.
Yeah.
And I think in Christians is very clear, this is training for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So, and I throw these guys a little bit of a bone because they've been in Egypt for roughly 4 centuries.
Yeah.
Right? And so during that time, they've been surrounded by the Egyptian gods, Egyptian pillars, and so forth. And Exodus 3, around the middle of that chapter, would imply to us that they've kind of forgotten God. Right? Because Moses says, Lord, when I go back and say these people, they're going to ask me, who sent you? So they will. And so what am I going to tell them? It's like they have to be reintroduced to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And 400 years they've forgotten. Well, would we forget? You say 400 years. That's even before the founding of the United States of America, right? For sure. So when we remember what our great times 8 granddaddy was doing, what great 8 times grandma will do, we don't do it. So just like us in a similar situation, they have to be retaught, retrained, reshown in those certain terms. That look, you are my chosen people. I picked you guys. You got to listen to me. I got your back. But, and like I say, I just feel the bone because I'm sure if I was in a situation, I'd be just as bad or worse. And they have to be shown over and over. And finally, you have to wipe out one full generation in this season.
Yeah.
What the deal is. And so we have 40 years into the outback, basically.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're getting to, some of those greater failures. These are smaller ones, but they're kind of helping us see. Here's the sad thing, y'all. These Israelites are not really learning. they're experiencing, but their faith's not really growing. Their trust is not really going in God. Every time life gets hard, they're right back in the moaning, grumbling. It's a problem. I want to take just a minute. It's interesting to me the way God solves this one. This isn't one of the ones that just hold out your staff and it'll be good. He says, throw this wood, this log, whatever that word really means, throw it in the water. And it went from bad water. Bitter just implies it's undrinkable. It don't mean it just tastes bad. If you've been 3 days and the water was safe and it just tasted bad, guess what? We're drinking it. It's worse than that. This is bad water. It would be harmful for you, okay, to drink this water. So he has them throw this wood in there. So this is just an aside, just interesting for you. I hadn't been over in Tanzania too long on one of my trips, and I kept noticing these Maasai. They had this little horn. It's made out of a gourd, and they kind of carry it. It's about the size, if you're a black powder person, kind of a powder horn. And they got a kind of little leather cap that they put on it. But what I noticed was they drink milk out of it. So here you are over. They have no refrigeration or anything. And so they drink milk out of this horn. So I'm just curious as can be about this. So I start talking to them. And I say, well, how long is this good for? I know y'all milk every morning. Y'all about 5 or 6 hours out there in the heat in a gourd. And then it goes bad, goes sour. They go, no, it will go like 3 days. 3 days. I said, what do y'all do? I don't understand that. They go, the gourd is prepared in a special way. They would take this gourd after they've hollowed it out, and they would burn this wood, this specific plant wood, and smoke the inside of this gourd. And then for every time they put milk in that gourd, they take a sliver of this wood and they put it in there with this milk. Whatever the antiseptic properties of this wood was, it's kind of like, here we are thinking we're the smartest people on earth, this American thought technology, and here's these Maasai out there that can keep milk drinkable for 2 to 3 days with no refrigeration. Living a stick of mud, that's right, with thatched roof. So I'm just saying it's pretty amazing. There's things in there. God knew in this case, put this wood in there and it's going to take care of everything. I mean, it could have just been a miraculous event too. I don't want to downplay it. But that was really interesting to me. Not a miracle, but truly a wonder and awe to me that here's these people, that can do something that I'd never heard anything like this in my life, So, all right, let's go to no. Not because I thought that the milk itself was sour. There were other reasons that I didn't want to try their, I'm pretty big on pasteurization, y'all. It's just me, But here's the other thing, though. One of our rules, if you ever want to go to Tanzania with us, actually we have the same rule on yours. Everything you consume, everything you put in your body, it has to be cooked. You got to cook everything. You do not just drink the juice or the milk or the water. The water has to come out of a sealed bottle. The food, you don't eat any of that wonderful fruit. No. It is wonderful. It would taste delicious, but it's risky. Everything's got to be cooked. So, no, that's the real reason I would never drink out of that gourd. All right, next event, I think we can get another one. At least we can get started on this one. It's going to be, and Glenn alluded to it, it's going to be the manna. So let's pick back up in Exodus, just next chapter, chapter 16. And let's read, we'll read maybe verses 1 through 3 first. They set up from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, and on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. So, y'all get this, timing-wise? It's the 15th day of the second month. So we're talking about a month and a half here, 45 days from when they left Egypt, okay? And the people of Israel said to them, and the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness, and the people of Israel said to them, would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by meat pots and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. I mean, some of you moms that, you're a little late fixing dinner for the kids and stuff. I don't know if it gets this desperate or not. But here we are. Now, let me ask you this. It's been about 45 days. What have they been eating? Well, they came out, we read before the lines a little bit. They came out of Egypt with a lot of good stuff. It talks about them bringing their bread. It was unleavened. They didn't have to run, but I mean, they got all kinds of stuff, and they got their flocks and their herds, but guess what's happening? We're getting down to what? Pretty much eat everything up. Okay? And now we're back to what? Life's got hard again. We're back to grumbling. We're back to complaining. We're back to having a problem, And it's one of these things that, I mean, if you think about it, all that's already happened. Getting out of Egypt, the Red Sea, the water. Here we are in just 45 days. And now it's again, they were probably really hungry, But they're grumbling again. When they grumbled about the water, did their grumbles get answered? Yeah. So be careful. Just because you grumble and get what you want doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. Okay? Doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. Right? Brother Glenn, you got a comment?
Yeah, so just a quick thing I was going to mention. There's another little interesting tidbit here, hiding in the Hebrew text.
Okay.
Our modern translation fits like that. Wilderness of sin. We're not careful. We're just tempted to use that English word there. But in Hebrew, it's the wilderness of seed.
Seed, yes.
Seed is the Hebrew word for thorn. So now, interesting. The wilderness of thorns. So, and then like very next sentence. And the people, all the congregation was grumbling and whining. So, if that conjecture is correct, then they've made it to this thorny, I kind of get the idea of like a few times I've had to clear out a field that has blackberry on it.
Yeah.
And it is so nasty. Imagine people going through this area full of blackberry thorns. I'd be grumbling too. I'd be grumbling and whining and calling out.
Yeah.
And so here they are.
And you're probably being nice about describing it as blackberry thorns. I'm just telling you, in Tanzania, I'm telling you, just everything over there. I mean, it's just got thorns. I don't know how the goats do it. It's like they're sitting there eating pin cushions. I mean, they are made. I don't know how the giraffes do it. I don't know how those elephants can put their trunk up there, and they know how to strip off those leaves and just strip all those big thorns off. And it's nothing to them. But I mean, there's so much thorns there, and there are places there. I can just in my mind see it's like, wow, we don't want to go there. And so they are. They're in a rough environment. I mean, God's taking them through this, and so I mean, maybe this is a good time to ask this question: why would God continue to test them like this? We've already talked about God test us. Why? I mean, hasn't He tested them enough? Yeah, Moses was the most humble man on earth. Is pretty much what the Bible. God says it. This is the words of God telling us. He was the most humble person because he put up with all these people and really, I mean, God God would not have chosen me to lead those people out. I can guarantee you that. 'Cause I would have had about one good episode with them, and then it would have been, Lord, I'm done with this, okay? I cannot do. Moses just kept on. These people, though, here's what we've been hitting all over this. Glenn's made a point. Chris has made a point. You see, God's great. He's got a great purpose for these people. He wants to use them in this amazing story of salvation that he's going to work out for mankind. He wants to use them. And so he's so patient and long-suffering with them. And he's trying to develop them. I mean, literally, as I think Glenn brought out, maybe Jerry and some of his, they've been slaves in Egypt for 400 years. They're not soldiers. They haven't had to been out there running a business and figuring out things. They've been what? Being told what to do every day in the lives of these people that are now out in the wilderness. And it's kind of interesting how Satan makes us look back on kind of a messed up bad life and go, oh, how good that was. When today, life's hard. When today, life's hard. We look back, and God's trying to get them ready for this great purpose. And that's a lesson for you and I in our last moment here is God is trying to use us. He has a great purpose for the church. He's got a great purpose for this congregation. He wants to use us. And we're going to have challenges and difficulties, but we have got to what? We've got to grow through them. We've got to get stronger through them. We've got to get closer together. We've got to be learning from these things. We've got to be overcoming these things. We shouldn't think that when life gets hard, God doesn't love us anymore. God doesn't care about us, or he's even ignoring us. No. He has a great purpose for us. And if we lose faith and quit trusting him, then it's just going to be a story of misery and hardship. And eventually, as Glenn pointed out, die in the wilderness. Okay? But ours will be a spiritual story with an eternal impact to it, not just a physical impact. A couple quick, Brian, right quick, yeah.
It's not likely that they had full parts of me back in Egypt, nor third graders that wouldn't be. It's just what they, in their circumstances, they can say that they had more than got out.
Yeah, Brian's comment was, they make it sound awful wonderful back in Egypt, but guess what? They were crying out to the Lord. It was so bad. They were crying out to the Lord. It was so bad, so desperate. But now, here today is I'm miserable. And so the past starts looking good. Okay. All right, that was the second bill. Thank you for your comments. Jay's going to teach I'm going to be out next Sunday. Jay's going to teach the class next Sunday. Okay. He'll study with you on another failure.